Joe, how much more pleased were you with the rhythm of the offense, at least through 3+ quarters?
Yeah, I thought, obviously results in that time frame speak for themselves. So when you're converting some third downs or, on Sunday we were skipping a lot of third downs, going from first to first or second to first. That always helps. So, it felt a lot better, certainly early on.
You guys have obviously faced a lot of zone coverage the last 2 weeks going into this week as well. What's the biggest challenge of how the Chargers play, especially with their secondary, that kind of maybe give you guys fits?
Well, I think, they've got this chess piece in Derwin James. He's the nickel, he's the dime, he's a safety. And so just keeping track of where he is. They got a lot of different personnel groupings as a defense, and all those personnel groupings mean something, just how you ID the defense, both run game and pass game. So very multiple defense with a lot of good players. So, we'll have our work cut out for us for sure. I mean, they've been playing really well for 20 games now, I guess, with the new staff. So, they're a real good defense.
Joe, we've seen a lot from Troy Franklin on the practice field throughout training camp. How important was it for him to go out there and put up a big game and really get the confidence?
Yeah, I think that always helps. Like you said, we know it's in there, and for it to show up on Sunday was huge. And I think he's playing real well, and hopefully that continues. But, I think he feels good. We feel good about where he's at, and just got to keep building on it.
Sean said one of the things about, young receivers coming into this league oftentimes in college just played in one outside spot, but sometimes occasionally come to the slot. Seems like you guys have been able to move him into a lot more spots this year. Is that just a credit to his improved kind of knowledge of the offense?
I think he's a smart kid, and the experience, you're just able to build on what he's done in the past. The building blocks are easier for him, so we're able to add different things to his plate. He's able to play multiple positions, and I think he's been playing real well.
You mentioned the pieces the Chargers have. Henley, what sort of playmaker is he for them?
Yeah, he's really good linebacker, tough, physical. Kind of a tone setter for them. Another guy that you got to be aware of. Be alert of where the matchups are. But he's just one of those high energy players, and one of the guys we highlight at that linebacker level. He's been playing real well.
It looked like RJ went the wrong way on a handoff on one play. How's he doing that way? And is that simple as it sounds?
Yeah, it was. He got confused with some of the terminology, I think, where he thought it was a protection and it was a run, and it's just a matter of listening in the huddle, it's not something that's been repeated with him. He's another smart player, so just one of those unfortunate events that we don't expect to happen very often. It's not indicative of him or what he shows every day. Just one of those one-offs, I think.
You're coming off a game like last week. Does it immediately make the next game a statement game?
I'm not sure. Every week we play the games, win or loss, and we correct on Mondays. And we look back on what we did good, obviously. We continue to move forward with that. And what we didn't do well, we fix. I thought they had a good plan in the first half last week. I thought we adjusted well at halftime and kind of bowed them up a little bit. We gave up the big run in the second half, and they made more plays than we did in the past game. That's going to happen in this league from time to time, and no worries, big picture wise.
Sean pointed to the 9.8 yards on first down.
Mm-hmm.
What was that due to, or what did you see?
I think early on they had a good plan. They made some explosive plays on first down, which we knew going into the game. They made 12 the previous week before, so we knew that going into the game. But they called a good game in the first half. Finding the tight end was tough on us early on, and we kind of mismanaged a couple zones with the halfback swings. That was strictly on me. I'll coach it better and we'll move on. But I thought we battled. At halftime, we made major adjustments and came out and played better football. That's what matters.
Did you look at it as a positive that even though they were able to move the ball, they had to settle for 4 field goals in the red zone?
Absolutely. That's always our goal. If you win red zone, it keeps the points to a minimum. That's our goal each week. But obviously, we got to fix what went wrong in that first half, and we can't duck that, and we won't duck that. And and we haven't. So we'll fix those things and move on and get better from it.
What's the challenge as a play caller when you're trying to get after a quarterback and gets the ball in his hands quickly? How do you balance the coverage with the blitz dynamic?
I thought big picture-wise, the plan was to stop the run and put the ball in the quarterback's hands. I thought he played a great game. I mean, we hit him a lot. He made, plays, being hit in tight windows. I thought we covered him really tight. We didn't finish well enough. That will get better, and I thought we battled. It was an NFL game, versus a good opponent. So I wasn't disappointed about those things. I thought we didn't make enough plays. That comes from obviously practicing better and making more plays in practice. But I thought we, at halftime, made the proper adjustments, came out and played good football. That's a positive also.
Did you talk to Pat just because, the Colts threw at him and completed some passes? Very unusual.
Well, absolutely, but I think most of the good offenses, Mike, they have to do that. If they don't, right, they lose half of their offense. And what we're doing on defense is pushing the ball to Pat sometimes. So he has to make more plays, obviously. We all have to, so I'm not worried about Pat making his plays. I will welcome teams attacking Pat every week. So I'm not worried about Pat.
This week marks 1 year for the injury for Alex Singleton.
Yeah.
So a year removed from that injury, how's he grading in your eyes?
He is getting better every single week. It's good to have our captain back on the field, making the checks for us and keeping everyone in position to make plays. Obviously, it takes time to get your total movement back, from the ACL, and he's working every day, and it's getting better and better each day.
With Herbert, I think he's run it 7+ times each of the last 2 weeks. What kind of threat is he with his legs in addition to?
He's a special athlete, man. He's playing at a high level right now. He's probably the MVP right now, after 2 games, but he is accurate. He's obviously a big man, so he can see over the pressure. He's escaping, on major downs, second and long and third downs, to keep drives alive. So how we rush this guy is going to be key, but how we cover the receiving targets and make him hold the ball is also going to be key. So it's a combination of rushing coverage to contain this quarterback, and it's a run first offense, so the balancing act between stopping and running, defending the pass is going to be critical.
PJ, when they go to such other heavy looks,
yes,
and then they don't really act like a running team out of those, sort of unique to them.
Yes, it is, and that's good football, because obviously if they're in big people, you're thinking that they're going to be heavy run, and they have a good play-action pass game out of it. With the inserts we saw last week from Warren, right? They run those same kind of plays, from the big group. So just having good eyes, having good calls on versus those groups going to be key.
Was the Taylor run one of those awkward plays? You
Oh my
spent
God.
a lot of time talking about it.
I have not. We missed the tackle in the backfield, made him cut 7 yards deep. Then we got a couple guys free there, and he made a play. Again, I thought we bottled him up pretty good in the running game early on. It's about 3.1 a carry into that last drive, and that cost us 3 points again. So we can't do that. The second half, again, guys, we played good football, but that was the one play that keeps bothering me. Second half.
What were some of the adjustments?
Well, in the second half, we played more coverage on the P and 10s and the 1st and 10s, right? I mean, he came out throwing, right? His numbers didn't say that early on in the week as far as when we game planned, but they were throwing the football. There's a bunch of RPOs, so when you showed single high, it went from a run to a pass. So we kind of adjusted our coverage a little bit and played more coverage and less single high in the second half, and it helped us.
Vance, what do you think from the Johnson kid?
He has gotten better. We've watched him now for 3 seasons. He's always had the physical traits, but man, he is playing with confidence. He's making plays down the field, and he's become the gadget player. I mean, he's the jet sweep guy, the reverse guy, and he's made a big play in both games. We've watched this season. So he's a first-round pick for a reason. The physical traits were always there, but now you see him mature as a receiver. So he's going to be a challenge.
Just kind of describe that final play, what you saw and how you described what happened.
Yeah, Mike, I know Sean went through a lot of it already, so I'm not going to reiterate all the things that he said, but from a coaching standpoint, the thing that's disappointing to me is the execution part. That's on me. As a coach, any coach, if you go out, we're not lined up correctly, and we didn't execute the call that was called, and so, that's what keeps you up at night as a coach. So, as far as the penalty goes, listen, the leveraging call, was it letter of the law of foul? Yes. Are there many of those throughout the year that don't get called? Yes. So I get it. I guess probably because the play was in an escalated situation. But again, we'll learn from it, move on, and again, like I said, I know Sean's covered a lot of it, so I'm not going to double, reiterate all the things he said.
The Colts special teams coordinator was kind of bragging about how they knew from, you've been in the league a long time, and they thought you always had a leaper type of tendency in a situation like that, and they kind of drew the foul, so to speak, with the guy pushing Tillman up. What do you?
Yeah, listen, Brian Mason's a great young coach. I think Brian Mason's going to have a great career in this league, and so I respect Brian. Listen, no one self scouts more than us. We know our tendencies. I would say this to you: the call we were supposed to run, we've never ever run before, ever. So I would have to say that would be coach speak a little bit. We've probably, in my 17 years in the league, we've probably run about 80 different field goal blocks. And we ran the call incorrectly. So to say that, I would have to kind of say that's some coach speak there. But again, I got a lot of respect for Brian. He does a heck of a job. He's done a great job in college and a great job at the Colts. And so, but I'm very, very confident that our tendencies, we don't have that many. And that play that we were supposed to run had never been run before. So,
Coach, you mentioned the alignment was off. Sean also mentioned.
Yeah.
Why was that? Was it just
there was a late minute confusion on the field, and a couple of guys switched spots in the heat of the battle. Unfortunately at that point we didn't have a timeout. We had burned all of our timeouts, and so we were aligned incorrectly. And again, that's on me. That's on the coach. Anytime we go out there in all three phases, if we don't execute a call on the field, that's going to come back to that lies on me, that falls on me. So that's the part that I'm disappointed about, that we didn't actually run the call that was called.
Riz, I'm sure you saw the touchdown in that Steelers game with the rookie return. Had that been a point of emphasis to all your returns before, or has it been?
Yeah, listen, I don't know if all the fans really know. That rule changed with the new dynamic kickoff. So in years past, when the ball had gone over the goal line untouched, it was an automatic touchback. And so I think that, again, I can't speak for the Steelers. I can't speak. Danny Smith's a hell of a coach. Mike Tomlin is as good of a situational coach as there is out there, so I certainly can't speak for those guys. But I think that the player probably got confused by the old rule and the new rule. And so when the new rule went in, we've gone over and over, the touchback rules. And so every single ball has to be downed. I think he might have thought the ball was going to skip through all the way through, and obviously the ball was still a yard in play. And so, but yeah, huge emphasis. Obviously with all these, I think there's 156 more returns in the first 2 weeks than there were last year. If I'm not mistaken, I think I got the number right, over 75%. So with all this new play, if you will, we have to continue to remind our players weekly, and we do that on Saturdays. We go back through the rules, and whether it's leveraging or whether it's the touchback or whatever rule it is, we take pride in knowing the rules. And it's not that we didn't know the leveraging rule. We just got caught in a spot that we shouldn't have been in. And again, from a coaching standpoint, going back to the leveraging play, I'm just disappointed we didn't actually run the call, because I don't think we would have gotten a penalty had we run the right call there. So that's the disappointing part for us.
Darren, last week you mentioned Marvin Mims. You don't really say a whole lot, just track record who he is. It's sort of the same thing with Wil, like when a kicker misses a spot like that, is it because of his track record?
Yeah, listen, I think body of work, I would have to agree with that statement. Marvin's not a guy you got to overcoach. I don't think Wil Lutz is a guy you got to overcoach. Listen, Wil Lutz is a really good kicker that missed a kick. And so it comes down to that. I think since Will's been in the league, if you add up all the kicks that he's taken, PAT's field goals, I believe he's 6th in a 10-year run in the league. And so, listen, it's no different than Jamal Murray. He's a 93% free throw shooter in the fourth quarter. Once in a while, he's going to miss one. And so that's why they're not gimmies. You still got to go out there. You still got to execute. And so I have the utmost confidence in Wil. So does the locker room, the coaching staff, everybody. And so we're gonna rely on his body of work. But I think your comparison to him and Marvin is a very good one. You're talking about Pro Bowl level players that just didn't do their job on that particular play. So there's really not a whole lot to say. He knew exactly what he did wrong when he came off the field, and we move on.
For two more?
In terms of covering kickoffs, it's much better in week 2. You're plus 25. How much
confidence you have that you can regularly, defend the return
Yep.
and gain yardage?
Yeah, I mean, I liked our body of work last week. I think our average starting position last week was the 35 after returns. I think their starting position was the 29. That's really what we're looking for to obviously win that battle. We had a lot of my group last year. I know it wasn't here, but my group last year led the league. And so, and schematically, you have new players, you have a new system, you have a new deal. And so that situation happened at the end of the half. In the first week, you saw that same situation pop up in the end of the Tampa game. Tampa scores late. There's 6 seconds left. I think it was a field goal game. What they do, they put the ball in play, get the ball on the ground, the game ended. If that ball gets returned all the way back, all of a sudden, you're second guessing. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that. Because of the 35-yard line touchback, especially when the team has timeouts, because one play you're in field goal range. So that's kind of the interesting part of this dynamic kickoff, no question. But to answer your question specifically, I have the utmost confidence in our players. I think we executed the plan really well this week. We tackled really well. We kept the ball inside in front, and we just, like I said, we missed a couple tackles the week before. But I have confidence moving forward. We'll continue to execute.
Coach, with being such a mental part of the game, did you do anything with Wil throughout this week or after the game or anything to make sure he doesn't lose confidence?
Yeah, we have Wil's got a weekly routine. Kickers are a lot like starting pitchers. You kind of have your off days and your throwing days and your rehab days. And so the days he's on, like a day like today, we make sure, yesterday, the day he was on, we put him in those situations. We'll do the same thing again tomorrow is another day. So he's usually, on a normal week, he's usually up on a Wednesday and a Friday with the days off in between. And so the best part about Wil is he wants to be put in those pressure situations, both in practice and in games. And we know, listen, Wil's had a lot of big-time kicks in playoff games and big games in fourth quarters. And so I'm going back to the question that was asked before, we're not going to overcoach it. We're going to get right back on it. And, again, it was just a little bit of a miss hit. So.